Hi, my name's Craig Heidi, and today we're going to review this case study for EDL 853, Special Education for Building Administrators. It's titled When a Student's Rights Have Been Wronged. First, let's look at the summary of the case. This case study takes place in a community called Dover, and it's a small community. It has about 6 elementary schools, 2 middle schools, and a high school called Nottingham High School, who serves about 3,200 students, which is quite a bit. The building there at Nottingham High School was constructed in the 1950s. They've reconstructed about 75% of it to make its handicap accessibility, but there's still a quarter of it that is not handicap accessible. The main character in this case study is Miguel Hernandez, who's a star quarterback. He's a sophomore there. They're in the state playoffs, and he gets hit and he becomes paralyzed from the waist down. So after some time away from school, his parents meet with the counselor, Ms. Guzman, and decide about him returning to school. He's going to be in a wheelchair. They say that he doesn't need any accommodations, but he will be wheeling around to get to his classes. On the first day back, Miguel tries to go to is told that he needs to meet with Miss Guzman, so he goes in and meets with the counselor, who tells him that his third hour has been changed and he's no longer taking biology because there's no access to the biology rooms that they have there at the high school, wheelchair access. Well, his parents are immediately concerned when Miguel reports that to them, and they have a meeting with the principal, talking about how upset and concerned they are about this, and about how biology is a prerequisite for him going to college, and they're worried about him not being able to have that prerequisite done, and he'll have to retake the class since it's a college preparatory course. Along with that, the dad brings in their attorney, Howard Carey, who talks to the principal, saying that, hey, don't you know anything about FAPE? My client's rights have been violated by Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act. So that's the case study that we're going to kind of look through today. With this case, we need to look at any legal or ethical issues. First one is, has anyone been harmed here? Well, I believe Miguel's educational future has been harmed when we're talking about college preparatory classes, and let alone his emotional well-being. You know, he just had this huge life-changing event happen to him, and he gets back and he's already being discriminated against by just having a class taken away from him without any discussion with him or his parents. So that's definitely a concern. As well as another thing that could be a potential harm is the district. The attorney, Howard Carey, could definitely file a lawsuit and could sue the district for discrimination. Have any actions violated any laws? Yes. It violated Miguel's free and appropriate education according to Section 504 of the Disability Rights Act. It also is a violation of the American Disability Act of 1990, which indicates that he needs to have equal access to various resources in a public school building like that. And did the action discriminate or constitute harassment? Yes, it discriminated against his handicapped, being in a wheelchair, without providing him equitable resources and access to a class that he was planning to take. So definitely was some discrimination that took place. So the gist of what happened: recently paralyzed quarterback Miguel returned to school in a wheelchair, discovering Miss Guzman had changed his class because there was no handicapped access, resulting in his parents and their attorney meeting with the school principal about the concern. Looking a little bit closer at the facts of the case, we first need to narrow it down into these 3 areas. The people. First, we have Miguel. He was the star quarterback, recently paralyzed. He's adjusting to that disability, but he's still hopeful to be college bound. We have his parents. They're advocating for his rights and making sure that he is taken care of. We have Miss Guzman, who is the counselor. We don't know how long she's been the counselor there, but she made the switch without consulting staff or parents based on the literature of this case study. And then we have Howard Carey, which is the parents' attorney that is accompanying them in the meeting. We also have mentioned in there Dr. Harvey, who's the superintendent of the entire district, who's built up strong relationships with the community. What we know about Nottingham High School, again, 3,200 students. It was built in the 1950s, utilizes relocatable trailers there, and a quarter of the building is still not handicap accessible because of lack of funding or not just being able to do that reconstruction yet. Nottingham High School is fed from 6 elementary schools and 2 middle schools. The high school is really a central hub for a lot of the community and activity that takes place in the Dover community. And what we know about Dover is that it's very supportive of the school building, especially the high school. They go to Friday night football games and just continue to volunteer and help out the school as much as possible. They also provide support for reconstruction of the building over the years, most likely probably through tax levies or other things, so that they can make some changes to the school building. Some of the programs, it didn't say a lot about the programs that are happening at Nottingham High School. However, they do label the services and programs there as exceptional, that it's very, very good. We do believe it's a public school, 9th through 12th grades, especially since Miguel was a sophomore. Every high school or school has to have some type of special education. It does not indicate this, but I'm sure there's something there that takes place with special education. We do know there's counseling services with Ms. Guzman, and we also know there's extracurricular activities that are taking place, like football, that Miguel was involved in. So there are a lot of programs and things that we do know about, but there's still a lot that are kind of up in the air. Looking at everyone who's involved, just the stakeholders in this case, we have to ask ourselves what damage has been done to them. So Miguel and his parents, he could miss out on a course he needs for college, which could be a potential concern for him, as well as he could be emotionally hurt from this discrimination that's just recently taken place because of his physical condition, and could set him back some from his own personal view of himself or the school building and community. We could have some backlash from the community if a lawsuit takes place between Miguel's family and the school district as well. The school district is definitely a stakeholder. The attorney could sue the district for not providing FAPE and violating his rights. We also have the community. Lack of funding could cause overall program and services to suffer if there is some type of lawsuit that takes place and takes some of the school's money away and the community's money from what goes on there. Ms. Guzman and the principal are also stakeholders. They could lose their position over a negligent action because they didn't provide equitable resources. But all these are important, have important stakes in the outcome of what's going to happen. Were all the relevant stakeholders consulted? No. In the case study, it was apparent that Ms. Guzman is the one that made that decision, even though they knew that Miguel was coming back to class and to school. They even supported him with an event that morning where they provided him a trophy. I guess this decision about his classes wasn't real public because his parents didn't know about it. It didn't seem like the principal knew about it in the case study, so it was Ms. Guzman's own actions that took place. And can I learn more about the situation? Of course I can learn more. I could consult with Ms. Guzman and really get her perspective of what's going on and why that decision was made. Is there issues with our classrooms in particular right now? I could also consult with our special education director since there was just a significant event that caused this kid to have a disability. And I could also consult with our superintendent just to gather more information about how the district might want to handle a situation like this. But I do feel like I am still in a position as a principal to make a decision because the students' rights have been violated. When we're talking about equal access, obviously in this situation, he did not have equal access to a biology class because they ended up moving him out of it. The options that I came up was first, for you take no action, you listen to the parents, but you make no decision or no action at all. You can fire Ms. Guzman and reallocate money to reconstruction of the building to make every part of the building handicap accessible. I could also consult with the superintendent and special education director. Or the fourth one, I could initiate a 504 evaluation with 504 coordinator while re-enrolling the student in biology. The first option, I didn't really think this was a great option because the pros is it just gives time to investigate the situation. I didn't really see a lot of other pros with it. The cons are it doesn't really value the family concern or the discrimination that took place, and it could cause a lawsuit to be taken up for lack of FAPE because nothing's being done to really resolve the problem. The second option is firing the counselor and reallocating funds. This would move the school to be more handicap accessible, which is good overall. It takes a swift action showing negligence is not tolerated in our school building. The cons, though, it leaves other programs with less funds. It doesn't really seek out the counselor's perspective or evaluate multiple sources of the decision, and it's hard to find a counselor in the middle of the year. Reconstruction is also very slow, which doesn't really immediately impact Miguel. The third option was consulting superintendent and sped director. I think this is a good decision. It gives time to investigate the best action that's possible, allows the principal to follow law specifically to avoid further issues in those conversations, especially if an attorney is present. The cons, though, it takes time, which could cause family to become more upset, and it doesn't fix the bias in allocation of those educational resources because it still leaves Miguel with not having his biology class. The fourth option, initiating the 504 evaluation and re-enrolling him in biology. This really recognizes the inequitable access and gets the student back in class as soon as possible. It rectifies that negligence of not providing free and appropriate education. It puts in place a plan so that discrimination can't happen in the future and that there's a structure in place so that his rights will not be violated. Miguel in the future can also use this to take into college to seek assistance for himself when he goes there. The cons, though, the biology class will probably most likely need to be moved or money allocated for the student to access the upstairs part of the building. Overall, I thought option 3 was a good option with consulting. However, it didn't really get to the point of the matter. And that's why I chose option 4, because I still think with option 4, you would still consult with your special ed director and superintendent about how to proceed. However, it really gets to the root of the problem, like I indicated, initiating that 504 evaluation plan and re-enrolling him in that biology class so that immediate action can take place and his rights can be definitely taken care of in the future. Implement this decision. First, I would meet with Ms. Guzman just to understand her decision making and overall the school concerns we have with classroom access and space. Obviously, the biology classrooms are upstairs, and I just need to know and understand the dynamics that she was kind of working through to make that decision. I also need to notify and consult with the superintendent and special education director just to get their insight, especially the special ed director, because he's probably dealt with situations like this before and he might be able to provide me some guidelines and help about how to proceed with the parents and with everyone else involved. The third one, I would love to try to meet with the parents informally and come to some type of an agreement focusing on a 504 evaluation plan. Up to this point, Miguel has had a fantastic time at Nottingham High School. There's been no concerns based on the case study. I'd like to get back to that point. And so I think if we can informally settle this disagreement, this concern, this discrimination that took place in a way where his rights will continue to be valued there at Nottingham High School, I think that's the best way possible. I know earlier reconstruction was one option. We don't have to reconstruct any of the building just because it was built in the 1950s, so it was before the 1973 Act as well as the IDEA and the American Disability Act. So those old school buildings don't necessarily have to be repaired. However, they do have to provide access to those resources. And so by them not providing access to biology class is a concern. And so they got to figure out how they can provide that access. So number 4, after I talk with them informally about that, maybe coming to an agreement and looking at a 504 to make sure his rights are secured while at Nottingham High School, we would then need to move on to getting the 504 coordinator to contact them and have that initial meeting, go through an evaluation process, but you may not, that evaluation process would look very small since it's a physical disability and we know what his concerns could be in that building. Usually the counselors are often 504 coordinators. In this situation with Ms. Guzman maybe taking some of the blame, I don't know what that relationship is with the parents. She will have to either repair that or we need to put in place a different 504 coordinator so that they can start fresh and we don't have any concerns right off the get-go with Miguel and his family. We also need to re-enroll him in biology to show that he has equitable access to that class. We could delay it to a different semester for him to take biology. However, that doesn't really fix the concern the parents have right now and show that, hey, this is a need and we want to make sure this is fixed. So we need to re-enroll him in that class, and then we need to problem solve. How do we provide FAPE for Miguel? Does that mean we need to get a lift for him to get up those stairs so he can attend biology class and do that as soon as we can? Or does that mean that we need to maybe bring the biology class to a different room on the main floor so he has access to that? And then the last thing, we need to create procedures and guidelines so future situations like this do not occur and the students' rights aren't inhibited. We want to make sure that students have all educational resources and access no matter what their disabilities are, whether that's a physical disability or whether that's a silent disability that we're not able to recognize. You know, special education wasn't an option in this decision either because he really doesn't need special education services. He just needed something for his physical disability to make sure his rights are secure. If the things don't go that route, we could always go through a hearing process to make sure that Miguel's our services and rights are taken care of and put in place. Thank you for this case study. I really enjoyed it and I enjoyed this class. Thank you.